How do you make friends in Denmark? That is a question that multiple people have asked me over the course of this YouTube channel's lifetime, and therefore it's also the topic of this week's video. After watching this video, you will have a good idea of how to approach making friends in Denmark and, more particularly, make friends with Danish people. If you are searching for tips and tricks on how to live and work in Denmark, subscribe to this channel and get a fresh Danish perspective on how you do things around here. Around here means Denmark. Subscribing to the channel really help other people finding it as well, so thank you in advance for your help. Now let's get started. Hey there, my name is Stephen Højlund. I'm a Danish national trying to make life a little easier for foreigners thinking about settling in Denmark, as well as expats who already live here. A central question that comes up for many foreigners is how to make friends with the Danes. Danes and Scandinavians in general are notoriously closed people. They mind their own business and don't go out much. In this video, I will teach you what to do by answering 3 questions. How do I find the right Danes to befriend in the first place? How do I find the right places to make friends? And how do I more operationally make friends in Denmark? But before we get started, there are a lot of assumptions we need to get out of the way, first of all. So, first of all, establishing friendships in a new country is always hard. Let's just be clear around that. You don't speak the language, you don't know the culture, people are busy doing their things, and why should they care about an expat who might just leave the country anyways in a short while? On the other hand, expats also have more time on their hands as there are no family and friends of their own to pack into their calendars. So they have more time to think about their need for socializing. So it's not so strange that it can be really hard for someone living abroad to make friends. And it's also not so difficult to understand why it's one of the most important topics for many expats. That brings me to a fundamental question. Are Danes harder to make friends with than other nations? It's hard to assess, but I would say yes, but not a lot harder in comparison. First, many Danes speak English really well. I lived in France for some time where people didn't speak that much English, so I had to speak French before I could integrate into conversations. I also lived in the US, by the way, and if I hadn't spoken English there, then I would also have a hard time. And let's just face it, it is a hard barrier to overcome, and in Denmark, this barrier just isn't really there. If you have lived in a country where you couldn't join conversations or understand the jokes, and where there was no common language to turn to, then you know what I'm talking about. It's not so easy. Also, Danes travel quite a lot. The average Dane has traveled to many countries in Europe and most likely also to faraway destinations in Asia, North America, or maybe even South America and Africa. In other words, Danes know about the world outside of Denmark. They know of other cultures as in comparison to nations in larger countries where tourism is to a larger extent happening within the boundaries of that country. That could be the US, that could also be Italy, for example. Despite that, Danes are generally not accustomed to foreigners. Since 1920 and the referendum at the Danish-German border in southern Jutland, Denmark was a nation-state with the borders of the state corresponding roughly to the borders of the nation. So what I mean is the Danes lived in Denmark essentially, not somewhere else, and the number of minorities living in Denmark was also fairly small. This has changed with immigration in the 70s and onwards, but still the Danish culture is arguably still a monoculture in comparison to the UK, the US, and France that have been multicultural melting pots for centuries. This can also explain why Danes are less open to foreigners compared to other countries, where it's just more normal to meet people who speak with an accent, for example. Danes are not quite accustomed to hearing Danish being spoken with an accent. Okay, that was a long in-flight, but I just want to mention one final point as well. The word friendship might mean different things in different countries. To a Dane, a friend is someone you can share everything with, except only maybe for the absolute most intimate personal secrets. Therefore, friendships are typically also built with trust over many years in Denmark. Don't build a friend, or you don't encounter a friend or build a friendship overnight. When I was younger, I used to say that an important milestone to friendship was to meet the person's parents. That meant to open up to a deeper understanding of the person I was befriending, knowing the social context that this person grew up in. So that was important to me at least. Nowadays in Denmark, I would consider being invited home to a person as a crucial milestone in building a friendship that shows commitment, that shows trust. Sorry, that was a very long rant and very long in-flight to the operational part of this video. So let's finally start getting operational for you guys who are looking for a Danish friend. How do we find a Danish friend? First, we need to deal with the question, what type of Dane will be most open to a friendship with a foreigner? This might be a very strange question to ask, but think about it. Isn't it better to focus your energy on the types of Danes where your chance of success is the highest? I think so. Therefore, you should look for the following type of Dane to befriend first, in order not to waste too much time. When you're looking to find a Danish friend, then look for Danes who speak English well. It's pretty obvious, right, that conversations will be challenging and encounters more restrained and less relaxed if the person has low communication skills. That goes without saying almost. Next, look for a Dane that is well-traveled and knows other cultures, preferably a person who lived or studied abroad. In this way, the person knows and sympathizes with expat life, and you will have something in common as well. The person might even recognize himself or herself in your situation, your struggles, and recall also the good times, challenging times maybe, of living abroad. When you scout for Danes and Danish friends, I would also recommend to look for Danes without kids. Danish families are super busy with bringing and picking up kids, family gatherings, and making the machine run at home. So much so that as a person without kids, I can hardly sort of make friends with Danes with kids. It's really difficult. So, in my opinion, you shouldn't go for a dad or mom to befriend unless you have kids yourself, in which case it might be a lot easier. I would even go so far as to say that you are better off trying to befriend a single person as they have more time on their hands altogether. And in Denmark, there are actually quite a lot of single people. So maybe try to go there first. And finally, you should, of course, try to look for Danes that you share common interests with and that live close by to you. It's about limiting those barriers to meet up and do something together. So now we know who you should go for focus on when to make friends. Let's now look at where you find your Danish friends. Where do you find Danes to make friends with, essentially? It's roughly the same places as anywhere else in the world, namely through activities like sports, hobbies, games, at parties, in community work, or at the job. Danes are known for having a very high participation rate in civil society organizations, such as local sports clubs, politics, and non-governmental organizations. So the journey to finding a friend should really start with the question, what do you like to do? Because most certainly there will be a club or an organization that cater exactly to your interest. And then my recommendation also would be to go all in with regards to club activities. Participate in all the club trips, board meetings, and become a person of influence that people go to for advice in the club. Then automatically friendship opportunities will follow because Danes will also come to you. The same goes for sports and hobbies as well. Just do what you like to do, and your enthusiasm will shine through and lure the Danes out of their cozy homes to potentially befriend you as well. A little pro tip here is, of course, to choose an activity where you can actually talk and make friends. Hiking and board games are good activities, while skydiving doesn't cater for so much conversation. Neither does bird watching, where you have to not say a word. So focus on the good conversation starter activities. Also, you need to take the initiative and walk the extra mile. Sorry, that's just the way it is. Be open and generous about yourself and with your time. Invite the Danes to come along. And very important, don't be discouraged when someone don't show up or doesn't follow your initiative. But be persistent in inviting them out the next time and time again. It's not about you being an expat. That's just the way it is here. Of course, you shouldn't be doing everything by yourself. And therefore, I highly encourage you to also find friends among expats as well. Together with your expat friends, it's easier to also invite the Danes in or out as a group. And then you will have a chance to find someone you really click with. But don't fall in the trap of blaming everyone around you for being closed off. It's also hard for Danes actually to make friends with other Danes. So it's just the way it is. And it gets harder and harder with age as people start families too. Ultimately, we are responsible for the friends we have and don't have. So get out there and invite people into your world and to participate in the things you really like to do. Finally, you can also find Danish friends at work. The good thing about work is that you are there for 8 hours a day, but that is also the reason why it might not be the best place to make friends in the first place. Danes like to keep work life and private life separate, so many Danes with families will leave to pick up their kids, and very few will stay to hang around after 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But if you work in a company with young staff, then going out for Friday bars together is very much likely to happen, I would say. It depends from company to company, from culture to culture in those companies, obviously, but you can investigate and ask about the culture before joining the company. Also, look at where the company is situated. Many large companies are not in the city centers, and therefore there's not much to do after work in sort of an industrial area where people drive to and drive from as well in the afternoon. Finally, you can easily get in contact with Danes if you go out and enjoy the nightlife. However, I don't think it's the best way to make long term friendships. It might work as a catalyst, but I just think it is better to single out the persons who are more prone to be friends in the long term. And discos and bars are typically where you go to get more instant gratification and entertainment, I would say, when it comes to social relationships. That was what I had to say about where you find your Danish friends. Now, let's look at how you do it more specifically. When making friends in Denmark, you should think of it as a slow process. Danes don't make friends easy. Their view on friendships is that they are deep, trust built, and long lasting. So, in general, they don't like superficial acquaintances. In my personal view, the process of befriending someone in Denmark can be broken down and divided into 6 steps or phases. First step is the scouting phase. Find a person who's friend potential or friend material and prone to be befriended. That means that the person should match at least some of the criteria that I mentioned earlier in this video. Second step is to become an acquaintance. Here you talk to the person fairly often, probably on a weekly basis in the football club or at the work. You are not personal with the person, you don't share personal information, but maybe you play football together, work together, or see each other quite often. That's you're in each other's sort of surroundings and environment. Third step is the socializing step. Together with other people, you go out and spend time together. This might be a group of colleagues going out. The important thing here is that the person is getting to know you better in a secure social environment, and as a group. And there's no awkward moments in this group because you're in a group and there's always someone who cracks a joke or says something funny. The fourth step is the personal step. Here you get introduced to the person's close friends or girl or boyfriend, or you introduce the person to your boy and girlfriend. This is the inner circle of the person's life you get introduced to or that you introduced to. So this is where you actually get in the friend zone, you could say, of your Danish friends, where before you were just acquaintances. In the fifth step, you get invited to the person's place. Maybe it's an invite for a couple dinner, or maybe a Champions League final with beers, a party with the closest friends, or maybe just a one-on-one hangout, chill out, whatever. The most important is that now you are very close to this person. The home is almost sacred to Danes, and they spend a good amount of time and money to decorate their homes and make them cozy. So now you have been invited into the sacred space. And sixth, finally, is the friendship achieved step or phase. At this point in time, you feel that you can share almost every secret with this person and open up completely to this person, almost completely. You have now opened up to each other, establishing a deep bond of trust. This is exactly what friendships should feel like with a Dane. This is what many Danes would consider a true, long-lasting friendship. After giving you my 6 steps, I have some additional operational tips and tricks that will help you along the way. Danes are quite closed and they keep to themselves in public. That is until they get 1 or 2 drinks. Then they become very sociable and talkative all of a sudden. In fact, Danes have for many years been one of the most alcohol drinking nations in the world. Especially young people have a very high alcohol consumption compared to young people in other countries. This is cultural, and unfortunately, alcohol plays an important role in socializing in Denmark. I find it really sad that this is the case. But in Denmark, you should not ignore the positive effects of alcohol when forming deep friendships. And it's actually not so strange when you think about it that alcohol has this effect. Oftentimes, deep friendships are constituted by extraordinary events that you have lived through and have in common with the people you now call friends. It can be an extreme event, a travel, military service, or something else. Alcohol makes you do crazy stuff, right? And when you do it with other people, it becomes a fun memory that you're sharing together, something that you can look back on together and that you share only with this particular person. Maybe you ran from the police, maybe you jumped in the canals or something else. My point is that in Denmark, alcohol is used to open up to strangers and let loose, whether you like it or not. You don't have to get completely shit-faced with the Dane, but introducing alcohol to a Dane, or just a couple of beers, you will definitely see the effect on them. Just try it. If you drink, it's great. If you don't, you might have to live with it to some extent that people around you are a bit tipsy. Okay, I hope I gave you an idea of how to approach making friends in Denmark. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel down below. And if you have a follow-up question or an idea to a video you'd like me to make, then write a comment to this video down below as well. I'll also include my email, so you can always shoot me an email. You can also check my other videos here and here about different topics for expats or people considering moving to Denmark. Until next video, take care.